Welcome to another edition of the Boston BioLife Innovation Series. And today I am pleased to be with Dr. Nathan Bryan. He is the founder of several nitric oxide products on the market today and is kind of responsible, I think, for the popularity of nitric oxide. But he seems to always persevere and he's always moving forward with the next iteration. And his latest creation is the N101 pneumatic nitric oxide company that he's put together, and he's been formulating compounds and really being a driving force to all the age management and the A4Ms and the other groups out there that are integrating this. And we're very pleased to have Dr. Bryan with us, and we're always happy to put his messages forward because I think it's such an important part of medicine. And I think that although we live in a complicated epidemiology and epigenetics, we have very simple tools that can really make a big difference. And so I think nitric oxide is one of those. So thank you so much for being part of the Boston BioLife education programs again, and it's great to see you.
Thanks, Joseph. Great to be here. And I certainly appreciate you and Boston BioLife for really getting the proper education out there for not only physicians, but for consumers and patients so they can make informed and educated decisions on which product technology may be right for them.
Yeah, so tell us about the current manifestation of your nitric oxide endeavors.
Well, I've been in nitric oxide science and research and development for more than 20 years. I have a number of issued U.S. and international patents, of published more than 100 peer-reviewed publications. So I like to say I understand how the body makes nitric oxide. I understand what goes wrong in people that can't make it. And we create product technology that basically restores and recapitulates nitric oxide-based signaling. Our whole premise was if your body can't make nitric oxide, then we got to do it for you. So every product that we develop or bring to market, you can actually detect and quantify nitric oxide coming up. And you made a good point. There are a lot of companies out there that are selling supplements, nutrition, a lot of products. In the nitric oxide space, I've tested most of these. 95 to 98% of the products out there that are marketed towards nitric oxide don't do anything with nitric oxide. So my challenge has been, how do we differentiate really bona fide scientific product technology from the noise out there and from really good marketing from companies who have inferior products? This whole field of nutraceuticals. So I created a new category called nitraceuticals. And these are nitric oxide active products that you can detect and quantify nitric oxide. So that's what we do. My companies do things that no other company out there does. We generate nitric oxide gas. We restore the endogenous production of nitric oxide by recoupling the nitric oxide synthase enzyme, giving the body what it needs to allow adequate production of nitric oxide. And so that's really the point of differentiation. And I think it's really important because a lot of these companies out there don't understand the damage they're doing to the industry. I get calls all the time from people going, well, I heard your talk on nitric oxide, but I've taken nitric oxide in the past and it didn't help me. Well, you've taken products that were marketed as nitric oxide that aren't nitric oxide products. So it's companies that are out there frauding, deceiving customers to try to make a buck. And that's why I think what we're doing here in terms of education is so important, because nitric oxide is foundational for longevity and health and wellness. And with these companies out there creating products that don't do anything towards nitric oxide, it can kill an entire industry. And if you were to kill the nitric oxide industry, you would kill the health and wellness for the global population for the next 50 years. So I think it's really important for your listeners to understand what nitric oxide is, to get the proper education and information. So now you can make informed decisions and look for nutraceutical products rather than products from these companies that are selling you bill of goods that have no nitric oxide activity whatsoever.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of like a multi-dimensional problem issue, because you have one is educating the population on the value of nitric oxide, but then the other side of it is what's truly nitric oxide product. How do you differentiate the two? So as the population becomes more aware of the value of these products, I think it's important that they have some place like your company and research work that you've done to really validate that. And I think understanding the science behind nitric oxide or any of these functional medicine technologies, because you're really part of a larger biochemical ecosystem that drives vasculature. So I think most people can understand that vascularity, blood flow, and a gas exchange. We've done a bunch of programs on this because it sounds really straightforward, logical, and obvious, but it's the root cause of so many diseases. Yeah, it's cause and effect like diabetes, right? So it's the diet, it's the gut, and then you have these inflammatory realities that melanger over time, and they manifest in these chronic issues like diabetes and wounds and foot ulcers. Yeah. And then you have these entire divisions in medicine around like the management of this, like the limb salvage department. What is that? Why are we salvaging limbs? Well, because this is an epidemic within a population, but there's tools that people can realize now that says, all right, so obviously vasculature is important. Nitric oxide is a way I can do that. I'm not getting it necessarily through nutrition, but we know there's nutritional things like beets, whatever, that do have it. It's just who can eat beets all day. So I think you're providing a good scientific resource, but it also helps other things work better too. And I think that's important for people. It's not a standalone thing. It works in a system.
Yeah, well, nitric oxide is foundational, but it's not a panacea. It's not an end-all, be-all, cure-all, but it's the foundation for everything you do going forward. And when you look at nitric oxide product companies or centric companies, there's arginine and citrulline products out there. Those are a waste of time. Your body makes enough of these amino acids that you don't need them. So I'd say avoid any product that has arginine or citrulline. The other, and you mentioned it, are beetroot products. The market's flooded with beetroot powders, beetroot drinks. 95% of those don't do anything. They just turn your pee and your poop pink and cause a lot of anxiety, but they don't have any nitric oxide activity whatsoever. And then there's companies out there trying to sell you nitric oxide in gummies and chews, these sugar-ridden. Look, nitric oxide's a gas. You cannot put nitric oxide in a capsule. You cannot put nitric oxide in a gummy or some gel matrix. So as a scientist, it would be funny if it wasn't so damaging to the industry to think that these companies are out there saying, oh, but you have nitric oxide in a gummy or a chew. I mean, it's ridiculous. And that's my objective, is to call these companies out, reveal the true science of nitric oxide, and really provide the proper education. So if you're looking for a safe and effective nitric oxide product, then we're really the only game in town, because we're the only company that generates nitric oxide active products that you can detect, you can quantify, and you can verify, and you can actually see the results in people who take it.
So where can people learn more about the research that you're working? I know you've written a few books, and I know you're a staunch advocate for the science of nitric oxide, and I think you're a great resource for our audience. So how do people get in touch with you, and how can they learn more about what you're doing?
Well, I send people first to my educational website. I'm not here to sell you products. I'm here to provide you quality education based on real science. And that's drnathansbryan.com. I do a monthly blog. There's a 6-minute video on there to provide the proper education and information around nitric oxide. So, and then you can look me up on PubMed, Google. I've published many peer-reviewed publications. I've got a book called Functional Nitric Oxide Nutrition that's been on the market now for several years. I've got a new book coming out probably late fall, early winter, called The Secret of Nitric Oxide, Bringing Nitric Oxide to Life. And it's twofold. It's to tell kind of the history of the discovery of nitric oxide, how we translated that into product technology, and then really the awareness around nitric oxide, what it is, what it does, and why you should be concerned about it. And then those of you looking for safe and effective product technology based on real science, it's n101.com, one nitrogen, one oxygen.com. And then we're on social media, Dr. Nathan S. Bryan on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter at Dr. Nitric. I'm searchable, so you can certainly find me and find our work and find our product technology.
Yeah, we're excited because you're going to be presenting at the upcoming Longevity Science mini course that we put together. And, as you know, we've been out there helping a lot of groups run their live events, and we've done a bunch in longevity. So it's biohacking or longevity or anti-aging or age management. All of these groups have similar functions and ideals and goals. And so from that, we've learned that it's really important that we put this information into the hands of the people that have access to large patient groups like pain physicians. These are typically unhealthy patients. So it's not just for naturopaths anymore. It doesn't have to be for alternative medicine. It really needs to be part of everyday medicine. But we're really trying to help put together a streamlined approach. Obviously, I cram all of longevity into 4 or 5 hours, but I can start to provide the footprint of not only the science behind it, the biochemistry of the inflammatory processes, the tools, real tools like yours, that people can have access to, and tie that into some of the advocacy organizations that are really helping, patients with very minimal hope opportunities and very complex clinical realities, and to try to make this really a philanthropic organization where education leads to action and action leads to helping patients. Because otherwise, why are we doing it? Right? And I think the science of what you're doing, because it's ubiquitous, because it translates into almost every organ and tissue in the body, really is a cornerstone. So that's really why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's an easy way for me to fill in the gaps between live events. It's an easy way for me to bring attention to companies like yours, which I think make a difference. But really, you're the one singing the song. I'm just putting you on stage. And the quality of what you do really reflects our brand, your brand, and really the information that gets out to the public. And I think we're doing a good job. And I think it's important, as you had said earlier.
Yeah, well, look, you're doing a great service to the community, and it's really, consumers are confused, physicians are confused, because there's companies out there that make a lot of money, that put a lot of money in marketing, that have inferior products that confuse the consumer. So this is really the only way to kind of make your way through all the noise and find some, translating real science into medicine and product technology, as your tagline says. So you're doing a great job, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for everything. It's fun to spend time with you over the time, and we've done some crazy stuff together already, like the music
That's right.
festival. And hopefully, we'll be getting directly to the patient because that's where the rubber hits the road. The patient is the customer of healthcare. They are their own clinical trial, and I like to say I am in of one. Everybody's their own clinical trial. They can take their own health and wellness in their own hands, and they can use the tools and resources. They can read research papers. If you're a computer programmer or a scientist or an astronaut or some complex professional, I'm sure you can figure out the science of gas exchange and how it relates to vascular health. And I think that's what is missing in medicine is that ability to let the patient become more engaged. An educated patient has a better outcome. I think it's all tied into the next level of healthcare, which is physicians and patients working differently together, but the patient having a more active role. And so having things that they can read and books that they can see and have access to people like you, I think really does, because that's what's going to drive it. All the doctors in the world and all the science in the world, and certainly all the regulations in the world aren't going to do it. It's going to be up to the individual to say enough is enough. In COVID, I think prime that pump. COVID gave everybody an insight. You either did nothing, stayed in your pajamas all day for 2 years, or you took your health and wellness and your immune system to heart, and you started to work on things that you could control. And I think an awful lot of people did that, and they saw a lot about for the next time, or how am I better prepared overall from an immune health standpoint. And so all of it goes together. And thank you so much for your time, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at our live event. You'll be there in a panel and reaching out to your network and getting people to sign up and support each other along the way.
All right. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Boston BioLife.